Injury Show Week 4 here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, presented by FanDuel and the Believe Network. I'm Dan Bespris. Thanks for watching. Please like, rate, subscribe, and follow on Twitter at Dan Bespris, Besbris. As we begin today, we are not just going through all the players that have injuries. That's not going to do us any good. This is the show where we get you the ads because players have injuries on what we affectionately refer to as the burger board. I got to do the, let's get rid of the formula bar. Let's go full screen mode here. I know, great podcasting. What's a burger board? Is a very reasonable question to ask. It is a callback to a Twitter thread I was doing last year where I was using a rotating array of emojis that basically I changed every single day. I just went to a page that had lots of funny emojis and I picked a different one every single day to list which replacement players, injury replacement guys, I liked the most, medium, low, or we're still kind of assessing. And I ended up one day assigning them burgers and people loved it. And by people, I mean me. I loved it. I love burgers. It's a personal joy because as someone with a finicky gastric system, a hamburger patty with some ketchup, mustard, lettuce on a bun digests relatively fine almost every single time. And sometimes that's what you're looking for in life, is something that's just going to pass through your body and not harm you on the way. So we've turned it into a board. This is, by the way, in the Google Sheet in the show description. So if you guys want to be able to just see this stuff, you can go to the show description. The free Google Sheet, the injury replacement board, is actually the very first tab in it. So it's the one that it should take you to by default. There's also a streaming calendar in there that we look at on our weekly preview shows every Monday here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. What I'd like to do today is start at the top. We're going to start with the three burger guys and work our way down the list. So we're going opposite direction this time around because I thought it was notable. We actually have a three burger guy now, and his name is Grayson Allen, who's been number 26 in 9 category leagues so far. Three burger guys are basically anybody up above the top 50 in their fill-in role. Typically, I say 25 to 50 range because you're almost never going to get an injury replacement guy that's inside the top 25. We got a little bit of it from Naz Reid last year when both Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle were out. And we're getting damn close to seeing it from Grayson Allen this year. He's averaging 19 points, 3 boards, almost 5 assists, 4 3-pointers a game, 1.5 steals. And he's doing it now on a much better 45% from the field and 82% of the free throw line after one very hot game. Pushed him from kind of that 65, 70 range all the way up into the 20s. Now, here's the thing. Grayson Allen probably going to be a rest of season guy even after Jalen Green comes back, but we haven't seen it yet, so we don't know for sure. Thus, he remains on the burger board. If Jalen Green comes back and Grayson Allen remains a top 100 guy, which I do think he will now, having kind of seen the way that the Suns are running things this year, then we can just take him off this list altogether because it just means that he's a fantasy asset who is getting a bump when someone else on his team is out. It's no longer a burger board because the thing that makes these guys burger plays is that they weren't startable until someone got hurt. They were, top 115 or deeper in 12 teamers where you're like, maybe all the way down to nah. And now they've been good. So let's move down to the two burger guys because Grayson Allen was the only triple threat on today's show. These are the double doubles. Kel'el Ware, who we saw was doing nothing. He was the backup center most of the time for Miami until Bam Adebayo went down. And now, over the last week, basically since Bam went down, Ware's been amazing. Two burger guys are guys that sit between 75 and 50. He's actually been a little bit better than that. So it's possible you could even call him a triple burger fill-in. I think he's top 35 over the last week. Nothing, 3.8 combined defensive stats, a little bit unsustainably high for him. Field goal percent is also low, however, so it's possible that those things maybe balance each other out a little. But I'm going to say he's probably around top 50 as a starter. So a very good two-burger guy that was not playable when the guy in front of him was upright. Kelly Oubre Jr., and you guys could argue with me about this one, and you'd be right to argue with me about it because I don't actually really know what Kelly Oubre is going to be when the Sixers are healthy. We also don't know if the Sixers are ever going to be healthy, but so far this year, Oubre is number 63 in 9-cat, 18, 5.5, and 2 3-pointers a game, a steal and a block. 51% from the field, 81 at the foul line. Those will probably come down as the season goes. If Joel Embiid ever gets healthy, if Paul George gets healthy, which, by the way, it sounds like PG is pretty close, which is what I told you guys the first day of the season. I don't have many sources in the NBA. I have a very select few. One of them had to do with Paul George and understanding that he was targeting a return in mid-November. This is what I said a month ago. And for me, that was more than enough to not draft him because I don't want this guy that's going to be out a month that's also generally not all that healthy. But, hopefully it gave you guys a little bit of an indication of when you could plan on it. There was talk about maybe PG trying to come back. The Sixers, I think they have a home game against the Clippers coming up in like a week, a little less than that. That was the one that was sort of like penciled in, but obviously if he's not ready, he's not going to play in that one. It was going to be the whole like not revenge game necessarily, but just seeing all your old buddies and getting back in the mix. There's going to be a big ramp up there. Not the point. We're talking about Kelly Oubre Jr., not Paul George. I don't know if Oubre is still going to have value when the Sixers are healthy. I don't know. He might still be a top 100 guy. I don't think he will, the way that I do think Grayson Allen will, but I can't eliminate him from this board until we know exactly what is going down. Ryan Rollins is a two-burger guy, has been since the outset. This is one that we've talked about week over week over week. He's actually number 35 in 9-cat right now. Just been amazing, hitting threes on good percentages with almost 2 steals a game. Rock and roll, baby. Kevin Porter Jr. is still out probably another 2 to 3 weeks at least. I think he's going to be reevaluated in 3 weeks. So enjoy the Ryan Rollins along. Ugh, go back and edit that out. Trey Jones. You guys know how much I love Trey Jones. He's number 45 in 9 category leagues right now. Obviously doing even more now that Josh Giddey turned an ankle, but Kobe White is the big one there. Kobe probably going to take Trey's starting spot. I think we'll see him play decent minutes off the bench, but it's not going to be anything like what we've gotten so far. I expect him to fall back towards the edge of the top 100. Maybe could hang on, but I'm skeptical of it. In the meantime, he's a two-burger guy. Daniel Gafford is one that I think was not on this board last week because he came back. Well, did he already make the board? Either way, he's number 107 in 20 minutes a game. We know enough about Gafford to know that if he plays 24, 25 minutes a night consistently, he's a top 50 guy. We might be missing our window here, though, because he hasn't been able to really fully get ramped up with both AD and Lively out. Anthony Davis might be back as soon as tonight, which is probably going to cap Gafford at about 20 minutes a ball game, and that's going to keep him more in that 100 range. So if that happens, we'll move him down into the 0 or 1 burger zone. I do think Gafford's a hold even after Anthony Davis comes back. I don't think he'll be a hold when Derek Lively returns, but we've gotten no good news on Derek since he went down with a sprain. Con Kneppel has been really cooking lately, and that's because everybody's been out for the Hornets. He's pushed himself up to number 87 on the board overall. Colin Sexton was back for the last ball game. He missed 1 and change with a sore neck. That was when Kneppel went crazy huge. And over the last week, Kneppel's been a first rounder, 25, 9, and 6, 3.5 threes, a steal, and he's made all 12 of his free throws. He's not a 3-burger guy. He's a 2-burger guy with everybody out. When LaMelo comes back, he's probably a 0-burger guy. When Miller comes back, I don't think he's playable at that point. But for now, he's been amazing. So get him into all your lineups as long as you possibly can. Just make it last. And Tantric Kneppel. See what happens there. Jaime Jaquez Jr. is another one where I don't really know where to file him. I'll tell you guys when I don't really know something. Jaime is number 29 over the last week. On the season, he's number 57. And I do think that there's been a little bit of an uptick since Adebayo went down. Not because his minutes have changed all that much, but because Bam was taking 15.5 shots a game and Ware's taking 10. 11. So there's an extra 4 shots floating around, and Norm's going to get one, and Wiggins is going to get one, and Jaime's going to get one. So a little bit more usage is going a long way for Jaquez, who's been great in both percentages so far this year. And that's kind of been his ticket to value. Great percentages, good rebounds, and good assists. It doesn't matter that he's not hitting a ton of threes or getting a ton of defensive stats. He's floating his value with some old man stuff. Percentages. Go figure. The reason I started this discussion on Jaquez saying I don't really know where to file him is because I don't really know what's going to happen with him when Bam and Hero come back. Because of the lack of three-pointers and the lack of consistent defensive stats, it's hard for me to see him maintaining value because his usage, which is really the heaviest part of his value right now, is going to take a big hit. The assists are going to go down. The boards are going to go down. And then how many field goals and free throws he's taking, those are also going to go down. And those are his positive stuff. Like, I wish you could wipe something out that was a negative, but every little bit of usage for Jaquez right now is critical. He might still be a top 100 guy. I do believe the field goal percent comes down from 58 over the course of the year. So probably when the Heat are fully healthy, he's outside the top 100. But again, we won't know until we get there. The one burger board is substantial this week. It requires scrolling, and that means we're going to move through it at a little bit of a quicker clip because I like these injury shows to be kind of in the 25-minute range. I do want to break quickly before the one burger board, remind you guys that this show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The Heat, we just talked about Jaime Jaquez, 6-point favorites against a zombie Cavaliers team tonight. Question you're asking yourself if you're getting down on that ball game is, do you think Miami takes the game seriously, even if the Cavaliers are resting Donovan Mitchell? Darius Garland re-injured his toe. They're resting Evan Mobley. Like, there isn't much there, but we've seen already a couple times this year that this injured star theory stuff pops up. Teams don't play hard when they don't think they have to play hard. And then they kind of get caught with their wiener hanging out at the end of the ball game. Like, oh crap, we let them hang around. And then they got beat by a bunch of scrubs. If you think that happens, obviously don't get down on that. If you think the Heat actually take this game seriously, -6 is a pretty low number, but it's all about whether or not they're focused. That's at FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook. I also mentioned it on our earlier show today, and I'll try to do this quickly, but it's not the fastest promo in the world. I did figure out how to answer YouTube questions quicker for those of you who sign up for a 99-cent membership. I don't know exactly what pacing that means, and I don't expect many of you to take advantage of it. But if you are a YouTube member and you comment on the pods, I will see it and try to get back to you in short order. So please, if you have a buck, it's a number that I'm really hoping people won't even think about or miss when it's gone. Know that you are fueling this old man squad engine. You are getting us ever so slightly closer to the goal of 500 members. And then I can just do this stuff for free forever, because between that and the growing podcast and the growing YouTube page, there's absolutely no reason why that shouldn't be able to fund all of my childcare expenses. And that's all I'm trying to do. So thank you in advance to everybody that's done it already. We're at like 200 and I actually haven't looked in the last couple of days. We're approaching 300 combined. I want to get to 500. We're almost 60% of the way there, and we've only been doing this for 6 weeks. So I feel pretty confident we're going to get there over the fall this season and next season, which is the timeline I've given myself to do it. But I do need your help. So thank you in advance. Remember to like, rate, and subscribe as we dive back into the one burger plays. Dylan Brooks is a one burger play as long as Jalen Green is out. That one we've talked about before. Colin Sexton, I'm contemplating moving down into the 0 burger range. He just has these issues with his fantasy game that are not going away. He's number 206 on the season, despite, it's weird, averaging 16 and 5 with 51% from the field and 84% at the free throw line. And if you're like, I don't understand how you can be that good at the things that usually make a player suck in fantasy and still be ranked outside the top 200, the answer is no defensive stats, no rebounds, barely any three-pointers, and over 3 turnovers a game, giving you an assist-to-turnover ratio of about 1.6, which is just frankly not enough. So with Sexton, it's always been the case that he needed copious usage to have value, and I think I'll play him as a one-burger guy with no LaMelo and no Brandon Miller. Once either of those guys comes back, I probably take Sexton off the board. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's been out for the last couple of ball games. If he comes back before Trae Young, you'll get him in here as a one-burger guy. Same story for Isaiah Stewart, who's been out. He hurt himself after Tobias Harris, who's, by the way, going to be out for a while. Is a high ankle sprain, so Tobias is out for weeks, not days. I think the hope is to get Isaiah Stewart back within the week. So if he got dropped in a games cap format, I think I would probably go out and pick up Stewart and squat on him because it feels inevitable that he'll be back before Tobias Harris. And Stewart was posting fat lines in the 2 games where Tobias was out and he was in. 36 points, 20 rebounds, 7 blocks, and 4 3-pointers in those 2 games before the one where he played 9 minutes and got hurt. So again, he's getting drafted in a lot of places. With every passing game that he misses, he's ending up on waiver wires. I think he's a guy you should sit on. He's doubtful for tonight, so I don't think he's going to be back in this one. But, I mean, maybe you get him back by the Pistons' next ball game or the one after that. But that still feels like it's going to beat Tobias by 1 to 2 weeks. And that's a pretty good number if you're in a games cap format. Royce O'Neal remains on the one burger board. He looked pretty good in the last one with Jalen Green back out again, who, by the way, I don't know if I even said it on a podcast. Jalen Green's out 4 to 6 weeks with the re-aggravation of the hamstring. Davion Mitchell, since he got the steals pointed in the right direction, he now is a one burger guy. We had actually bumped him down briefly to a 0 burger play. But lately he's been back better than that again. So the first week of the year, it wasn't quite there, or he had one great game. Then he was bad for like a week and a half. And over the last single week, he's number 88 on the shoulders of field goal percent and steals and assists. And that's been enough to make Davion back now to being a one burger guy. Yusuf Nurkic is a one burger guy. There was a brief moment there where I thought maybe he could go 2 burgers. I don't think that's going to be the case because he's forgotten how to shoot a basketball. He's shooting just 29% since sliding into the starting lineup, 64% at the free throw line. I expect the field goal to come up into the high 40s, which it's going to move him a long way, and I think that'll get him inside the top 100 because over that stretch, he's over 10 rebounds a game. He's near 4 assists. He's averaging more than a steal a night. So there's a lot of Draymond-ish stuff going on. Just got to get that field goal percent squared away on Nurk, and he should settle into this one-burger territory. DeAndre Hunter is going to be higher than a one-burger guy tonight because Garland is out with a toe thing, but they're also sitting, as we mentioned, Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. And Jalen Tyson, who I forgot to color code in orange. I'll have to do that as soon as this show is over. There's his name on the board. Hunter's going to go big tonight, but in general, he's a one-burger guy. Tyson, I thought, was going to have a chance to have a really nice ball game with Garland back out again, but he's out, so got to not do anything with him tonight. Over in Chicago, there's a 2-pack here that sits on the shoulders of Josh Giddey. If Giddey's out, Ayo Dosunmu and Kevin Huerter are both playable as probably top 90, 80 kind of guys. If Giddey's back, I don't think either of them sits inside the top 100 reliably. Huerter would be the easier path there because he hits a bunch of threes and gets steals. Dosunmu needs a little bit more usage to get to where he needs to be. And the final one-burger name on today's show is Andre Drummond. And I know you're thinking, Dan, how the hell is Andre Drummond not a 2-burger guy? Well, he's a disaster at the free throw line. He's older now, so the rebound rate isn't quite as good as it used to be. Still very good, but not like it was before. And the defensive stats tend to tip a little bit more towards steals over blocks. And I don't, just with speed and strength at this age, I don't know that they're going to be as good as they used to be either. So if you think punt free throw, and I know that he's shooting 78% at the foul line so far, which makes me really nervous that a 2 for 8 game is coming. I don't think Drummond has the 9-cat upside without a punt build to get him higher than a one-burger play. But I do think he belongs on rosters because the story the Sixers are feeding us on Joel Embiid, I'm not really buying right now. I think they're trying to convince their players that everything's going to be okay because the team's off to a pretty good start. And if they think Embiid is toast, then you're going to see a serious letdown. We also have a number of names that I've either categorized or I'm still tracking, and it's possible at this point I should probably separate this into 2 departments, as in the no-burger, what would constitute a no-burger name on this board? Because the reasonable question there is, if they don't deserve a burger, why are they on the board at all? And it's because I think these guys have individual big ball games where if you catch them on the right night, you might get one or two potentially or three games where they do sit inside the top 100. But if you're thinking longer term, they probably don't. So a good example of that would be somebody like a Ron Holland, who's a no burger play. But for a couple of ball games and head to head, it makes more sense. He was okay. He got some steals, got some rebounds. And then in the following one, he got into foul trouble and wasn't very good. And so he didn't get to play. And if you roll it all together for all the time that Tobias Harris and Isaiah Stewart are out, I don't think Ron Holland is going to be inside the top 100. But if you get him on the right night, maybe against a bad defense, a younger team, something like that, that might be the opportunity there. The other names in this board, not like all of them, but the tracking names are the ones that I'm adding as I go. I'm saying, oh, this guy could be something. So tracking name, and actually I want to take him off the board because I don't care about Precious Achiuwa anymore. Brandon Williams is the latest tracking name that got added to this board. And Jay Huff, we got Aaron Nesmith back, so he can be removed as well. Brandon Williams had a good ball game. He moved in front of D'Angelo Russell, and he was the starting point guard for the Mavericks in their last one. But does that mean that he's immediately going to make the burger board? I don't know. I mean, what is the fantasy game actually going to look like for Brandon when Anthony Davis is back? Is he going to get enough assists? Is he going to run a bunch of pick and roll? Or are they going to run the offense through Cooper Flagg and Anthony Davis? It kind of feels like it's going to be a smattering of all of the above. And so I don't know that we can trust Brandon Williams to get more than 4 or 5 assists in a ball game. And you're going to get okay steals out of him as well. Points will come and go to some degree. And I don't think the percentages are going to be all that good. So I'm looking at Brandon Williams going, yeah, he could be. If he holds the starting job and he plays starting minutes, he could be a one-burger guy until we hear from Kyrie Irving. But it could also be the case that if he doesn't play particularly well, D'Angelo Russell just pops up and plays 28 minutes and Brandon gets 19. I don't think anything is set in stone after one ball game. The Mavs were more competitive in it, but they still lost. So we're tracking. That's a tracking one. Mavs play again tonight. We'll get more information on him. The rest of the names on this board. Sam Merrill is going to have a big ball game tonight because all of the Cavaliers are out. He was color-coded in orange because he was out, but then DeAndre Hunter came back before him, so he didn't really belong on this board, but he's back on there now because everybody's out of the way. Aaron Wiggins was really good when Chet Holmgren was out, but Aaron Wiggins is out right now. So even if Chet is out, you can't play Wiggins. You go one farther. And, I jumped over a name. I didn't mention A.J. Mitchell. I think I jumped right over him on the one burger guys, didn't I? Anyway, A.J. Mitchell is going to go huge because you might get a Chet absence tonight, and you might get a Caruso absence tonight on the second half of a back-to-back, in addition to Aaron Wiggins and Lou Dort being out. So A.J. Mitchell, you can bump him up a burger if you want for this evening. Brandon Podziemski, Steph is no longer out, so I should probably take him off this board. He falls back into kind of that, like, in-between, although it's possible. You know what? Actually, leave him on, because Steph was questionable for the second half of a back-to-back. Getting over a nasty upper respiratory thing. He played yesterday. The Warriors looked awful, and so maybe Steph gets the second half of the day off. So that's Podziemski. Marcus Smart is on the... He's like in between no burgers and tracking. He had a 7-steal game, so that obviously was above and beyond. But he's mostly a steals guy at this point. So if he doesn't have a giant steals game, it could be a really, really rough fantasy night. You're hoping for a couple of threes and a couple of steals, and maybe just being out there long enough will get him 3 or 4 assists. But that's hard to say is going to stick as like a top 75 guy. That feels like the kind of thing where you're going to get a top 40 game, then a top 200 game, then a top 120 game, then a top 90 game, and he's going to level off somewhere near about 100 to 115. And then the last two names here on the no burgers or tracking board, in my opinion, are probably the two most complicated ones we'll talk about. One of them is Colin Gillespie, who I lean towards saying yes. I lean towards a yes on Gillespie and moving him into the one burger territory. I think he can be a top 100 guy with Jalen Green out. His shooting's been miserable, but I have to assume that high 30s works its way into the low 40s. And if you combine that with the fact that he's kind of been the secondary or tertiary ball handler on the Suns, you get some of those point guard stats. You get a few steals, you get a few assists, you get a few threes, and we just need the field goal percent to be a little bit better. So I think Gillespie, I lean towards a yes if you're thinking, should I or shouldn't I play this guy? And then Derek Queen is the other one. And that's a super weird one because if Missy was supposedly back for the last ball game from a nasty upper respiratory bug, but then didn't play. So he was available but didn't play. And I don't know if that means that he just wasn't quite healthy enough to go, or if they're phasing him out a little bit, which would be pretty weird because he was the starting center for this team, and we've seen almost no games where they've all been healthy and together. But hopefully we'll get more information on that shortly. I was hoping we'd get more information on that in the last one, and that didn't happen because Missy didn't play. But they're playing tonight. They're hosting the Blazers, and presumably Missy will play. But if he doesn't, then you start to think, all right, well, maybe they just don't even really want to play the kid, which seems nuts. But in terms of what to do with Derek Queen, as I said a couple shows back, really only you know how your roster build is going. If you have a spot that you can use for kind of a long-term stash, active stash. What's an active stash? It's a stash where the guy's giving you something and not zero. It's not an injury stash. Then you can do it. I personally don't have that type of spot. I don't. I'm trying to win every weekend head-to-head as hard as I can. And the reason I feel that way on Queen is because I think we're going to see a dip. When Zion and Missy are both playing again, you're going to see the minutes come back down from 25, probably more towards 19 again. And with 19, it's not enough. You'll have one good game out of every 4. With 25 minutes, you're getting like 1 out of every 2 good games for Queen. As the year goes, however, does Missy get shut down? Does Zion get shut down? Does Missy get traded? This is a guy they're going to want to clear out space for because they made one of the most idiotic trades in the history of basketball to go get Derek Queen. No one has ever wanted a late lottery guy as much as the Pelicans wanted Derek Queen, but they did it. And so now it kind of has to work or everybody looks like an idiot. Nobody wants to look like a dum-dum. So they're going to force it to work at some point this year. It's that internal politics part of who gets to play. But I don't think it's going to be consistent now. If Willie Green gets fired and the front office gets to bring in anybody they want, they might just say, here's the mandate, go play Derek Queen 27 minutes a night. And then obviously you'd want to get him at that point. But I do think it's going to be an okay dip, slowly work its way up kind of thing. I personally don't have space on my roster for that, but you might, because there is probably a pretty good endpoint to it. And I think that's it. We talk about everybody on the No Burgers / tracking board. I'll tell you what, over the next week, I'll separate these two so you know which guys I'm classifying as the sort of outside the top 100 by a little group and the I haven't made up my mind yet group on where they actually belong on this board. And that'll hopefully clear things up a little going forward. Zooming out enough so you can see every name on the injury replacement Burger board as we wrap things up here on show number 2. Whoopsies, I meant to leave that up there so you could see it. There we go. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. However you're taking it in, please subscribe. That's a big one. The more we build out the podcast, the less I need you guys on Patreon and YouTube members. And in fact, if the podcast, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, whatever, if that ever gets big enough where that alone pays for all of my childcare, I'll just shut down the Patreon and the YouTube members. I'll just turn them off. Until that day, though, we got to build it up. We're not there yet. We're still very much in our infancy. This is season number 2 of Old Man Squad as a network. The growth has been insane. The fact that we have like 7 or 8 YouTubers here. YouTubers. They're fantasy analysts. But let's see if I can remember all of them on the fly. Kingy, obviously. Noah, obviously. They've been doing the most. But Matty G, Jacob Dunn, Keith Cork. We had Brenton last year. Thunder Dan. I think Eric Ong is still going to do a show, but I know he's gotten busy doing some more writing, which is really cool. You should check out everything that all those guys do everywhere they do it, which is another part of Old Man Squad. I want you guys seeing what everybody does in the fantasy space. It's part of the advantage of trying to keep everything from me free forever is I don't feel like I need to compete with anyone. I just want everybody to enjoy themselves. By the way, a couple of little injury notes at the very end of this show. LeBron fully practicing with the Lakers South Bay team today. 5-on-5. He's getting close. Bron, not that far away, working back from sciatica. Zach Edey, still doubtful, so likely not in there for the Grizzlies. Ja Morant downgraded to questionable. Ryan Kalkbrenner downgraded to questionable. So that would put one extra name on the we're sizing him up board. And that's Moussa Diabate. And now, officially, I can bid you all farewell. Thanks again for watching. I'm Dan Vespers. Find me over on social at Dan Vespers. Happy birthday to my son Asher, who turns 9 today. Way to go, big guy. You survived 9 years with me. See you guys tomorrow.